I'm Ch.3, writer of science fiction and fantasy. I'm running another session of the tabletop RPG, Worlds Without Number, in a setting called the Chronicles of Aeres. This is a world that's rebuilding after a bad king's death and a magical disaster. My two characters are Emmer, an armored warrior with a friendly disposition, and Len, an elemental mage. They're rat people. They're former humans who agreed to join a colony of heroic ratfolk living in the capital city by turning into their kind. It was a witness protection situation that got them away from trouble in their hometown. In game terms, they are now level 4 characters on a 1 to 10 scale. I'm showing their character sheets. Compared to last level, they have more hit points than before. Emmer has been getting more confident in his new hide, so I raised his charisma stat to make him better at most social skills. Len is a little more social too, getting a connect skill, and I'm saving her other 2 points for when she could possibly get more training. She has learned a new spell, a magic trick called Beckon Deluge, to conjure a lot of water, and an actual spell of a more powerful type called the Resounding Temporal Echo, which is a potentially devastating haste effect. She wants to get the local mages to teach her more, but there isn't much time yet for that. Where I left off, the two of them were pursuing their goal to liberate the town of Burial Crossing, their hometown, from the cult of the Black Rose. They got sidetracked by hunting down goblins for the villagers, which led them to a Black Rose base that they destroyed. A cultist escaped to warn his colleagues in town. Emmer and Len returned home to recuperate and plan for their assault. So they wore the cult down, but now they're not going to have the element of surprise. This is all part of a major project for these two. Padfoot Alley, their home, is dangerously short on population. Earlier, the heroes were prepared to spend all of their renown, a setting-changing resource, on a major project to recruit a large number of humans to become ratfolk. They had the magic to do that, but actually getting it done socially is difficult. Fixing their hometown would greatly cut the cost of doing that by removing opposition and helping to find the best candidates. So they want to go to Burial Crossing, kick out the cult, and convince some of their former neighbors to become ratfolk, thereby joining Padfoot Alley and bolstering their population. Because the Black Rose cult is such an obstacle and is expecting an attack now, the heroes want a true assault party, not just the two of them. Emmer's boss, Marius Thornroot, is the guard commander. He has not been supportive of the mission. He's not a big fan of this whole turning humans into ratfolk thing at all. But now Emmer gets to argue that a major victory is at hand. Emmer says, "Do you want support from the humans and to get our pick of qualified recruits? Doing them this favor culls the Black Rose thugs and makes us look good." And Marius harumphs, saying, "I won't commit half of our population to an assault. You know how few we are." Emmer answers, "I'm not asking for half. This will be a joint operation between humans and ratfolk for the good of all. Lend me some muscle and we'll crush an enemy on our doorstep." Emmer rolls well with his skill at leadership and his improved charisma. Because of Emmer's proven performance, Marius is swayed at last to help. He says, "Yes, it will be a good testing ground anyway. A chance to show off some of our military might as well." So Emmer gets to assemble an attack party. That will have Emmer and Len, then 2 human guards named Hal and Pike, who had proven themselves already in the previous mission, 2 more nameless human men from the city of Taldorius who are interested in the quest, armed with crossbows and knives. Finally, a pair of ratfolk guards with spears, shields, and armor, and a trainee rat mage guy who has the equivalent of a single elemental blast per scene. That's 5 ratfolk, a significant share of the whole population, 9 people in total. Emmer thinks about his battle tactics. Usually he carries a shield to protect himself and Len, but he's frightened of enemy mages now, and he recently had an experience of trying to interrupt them. A single hostile spell could leave the whole party asleep with no save. So he borrows a lighter suit of armor that will give him more flexibility, and that lets him equip a sheaf of throwing knives on his belt, ready to disrupt any casters. As a warrior class, he's got a method to guarantee a hasty hit if need be, so that's what the throwing knives are for. And his low strength score puts him at a disadvantage, but there were several interesting choices for combinations of weapons and armor. So he's going with lighter armor than normal, plus throwing knives. Anyway, they've also gotten support from Padfoot to get issued some potions. The spellcasters each carry a hazelnut brew potion that grants a slight bonus for an hour, which should cancel out the effect of certain evil lanterns that the cult likes to carry. The human guard named Pike carries a wrathful detonation potion, i.e. a grenade, and Len has one that she passed to a ratfolk guard. The party has information from the famed hero Ferric about a set of hidden tunnels beneath Burial Crossing, which is surely now the local cult base. The 9 travelers walk east and camp along the way. That night, something happens randomly. It looks like this is either a cult elite squad or prominent people from Biril, seeking food because the cult has been depleting local stocks. They're not in the mindset of killing heathens like our heroes at the moment, but which is it, cultists or even villagers sympathetic to the cult? I could play it as cultists with the minor shrine, disgruntled with their bosses for getting some of them killed at the prior base recently. I'll allow a bit more randomness by a card draw with a high odds of my theory being right. And the card says, yes, and it adds a detail suggesting a bard in need of punching. So, set the scene. The party is camping and has enough people to keep watch. It's dark. Between the hunters who are wandering at night in a foul mood and the party with a campfire, who notices who and at what range? Range, 90 feet. An opposed notice roll is strongly in the hero's favor. So, Len startles as her big rodent ears pick up some bad singing in the distance. Voices are trying to get the singer to shut up. She wakes people up, and they scramble for their weapons. They get out of the firelight, and Emmer crawls, trying to get a good look. He can't see much. He thinks, I thought I had night vision as a rat. I'm relying on that shield's magic. He got a magic shield recently. Still, the hero's party is alert as it creeps close. They soon see that the cultists seem to be a hunting party. Are they actually wearing the evil robes, though? I doubt it, so I'm giving it bad odds. The cards answer, actually yes. The cult of the Black Rose values its brand identity. One of the group is carrying a clattering charm made of bones, and there's a goblin on a leash being used as a hunting hound. That's probably not wise. The heroes try to leap out and ambush. Roll initiative. It's a tie, and heroes win those. They run up without good coordination, but they draw their weapons and shout, hands up! Morale check. The villains fail, which makes sense given their mood. A man curses and says, I knew this would happen. Had to be us they found. Covering each other, the party approaches while threatening the cultists. Those guys are disarmed. Does anybody try getting a spell off? Looks like no, although one man trips or gets shoved. The heroes kill the stupid goblin. Emmer isn't the best at intimidation, being a short rat with a sword, but he does have backup. He does a mediocre job at this, so the cultists aren't eager to talk. They say, the masters will kill us, or worse, if we say anything. The party has a problem now. Best they can do is make the enemy strip, take their robes for a disguise attempt, and force them to lie down all night while the heroes try to rest. It's awkward. How many are there, by the way? Looks like 3. In the morning, the group marches each to the village. The prisoners are between them. Now, the goal is to sneak into town and contact somebody the heroes know from the last mission to get help to secure the prisoners. One of the sneakier humans, Hal, goes on this job, carrying a message. He rolls very well for a sneak operation. How about convince? Not especially well at that, but the contact is favorably disposed and knows the cultists are trouble. So that guy and a few friends come over to the heroes, armed and carrying rope, to relieve them of the prisoners. The villagers meet up with the heroes in the woods to confer. The cult has taken over the town, operating as an open secret people were afraid to do anything about, and it has bribed a few important people. The town has a mixed history of being welcoming and good aligned, followed by an awful period under the Mad King. So the townsfolk are unwilling to take on the enemy directly. That's why they need outside help. A random card draw about the villagers' input suggests that the cultists have taken a hostage, the daughter of somebody important. So kicking in the door with full force is dangerous. The heroes have tactical surprise, though. Also, they have an interesting asset on their side. They got a potion last time called Omen Visions. Anyone drinking it can play out the next 15 minutes and get foresight of what will happen. So the plan is to sneak the party into town with a couple of wagons, use the potion to get to Tails, and use that to plan the assault. That'll be a stealth roll, organized by Len, to get started. And that goes pretty well. Everyone gets into a barn without trouble, hiding out. The group thinks about tactics and what they know of the hidden passages under town. And then Len chugs the potion. What follows is a hallucination lasting 15 minutes. So it's not real for these characters, but it's a way to get information that they can then use. The group sneaks as well as it can into the tunnels. Once inside, they hurry, not doing slow dungeon movement, thus raising the chance of hitting traps. This isn't a huge tunnel network. First questions. Is a known hidden entrance still usable? And if so, is there a trap? Looks like yes and no, respectively. Alright, good. Looks like it was unknown to the cultists, that they were getting in some other way. The party gets into the tunnels, moving quickly. They have poor stealth. What do they see? The cards say, a pallid and bloodless face, alchemical compounds. Okay, there's an alchemy lab ahead, and a startled cultist who looks up from his work. He shouts, echoing down the tunnels. He has a great morale roll and great initiative. Going first, he chucks a grenade at the party. These magic bombs always hit. Everyone takes 9 points of damage. Len takes half of that from magic fire because she's an elementalist, and she and Emmer can eat that much harm anyway, but everyone else immediately gets knocked out. That's the peril of having only one hit die and moving in grenade formation, close together in a tunnel. Emmer rushes the guy and cuts him down immediately. Len dives to kneel next to the others and start doing first aid. She's good at this. She stabilizes 2 guys immediately, though it's a near thing. She tells herself that this isn't real, it's not really happening, but she still can't bring herself to let the rest die. In round 2, the cultists are assembling to fight the intruders. Emmer takes position against a wall, ready to nail the first person running up. Len focuses on first aid, succeeding twice despite rising difficulty. She gets 2 of the rats stabilized, but these people won't even be conscious for 10 minutes, so they're not contributing to the fight. Nobody else shows up yet. But after a moment, some opposition begins. Len is busy trying to heal people when a pair of rank-and-file cultists run into view and let fly with bolts of unholy magic fire. Emmer spoils the surprise by trying to block these. One blast hits a wall, and Emmer's shield tanks the other. He charges up the hallway to skewer one man. Then, meanwhile, tells herself that the top priority here is gathering information, and if she doesn't see something that she won't learn, and then everyone really will be in danger. Squeaking in dismay, she abandons the rest of the party and runs up the tunnel after Emmer. The remaining cultist here panics and flees. By now it's likely the other residents are getting their act together. But no, they're still in disarray, as it's been less than half a minute since the shouting. Lennon casts the spell Resounding Temporal Echo at herself and Emmer, rapidly speeding them up. Len uses the speed to catch up, saying, "What do you see?" And what does he see? Emmer halts in his tracks as an obvious magical ward gets activated and fills the hall ahead with whirling magic blades. Len responds by using the spell The Burrower Below to rip a giant hole in the tunnels, 80 feet long, starting next to the trap area. She's just bypassed the trap entirely. There's a clap of thunder as a lot of stone disintegrates. The enemy was not counting on that. They make an instinct check, but they pass. They're skilled enough to react smartly. 2 more of these guys chuck ratfolk detonation potions. Fortunately, these things can't easily interact with each other, so they don't get a double blast, but it's still 1 hit on Emmer for 7 damage. He's badly hurt. He was instructed to shout about what he sees for Len's benefit. What does Len learn about that? Learn from that and from her own view? The skittering of many-legged things shows up on the cards. I think this means the cultists have summoned a demonic spider thing, but it doesn't really work for the setting. Flipping through more cards, I get a snake. Okay, a wizard has turned himself into a giant snake, violating the rules of the Evil Overlords list. This is a large, vicious predator, terrifying to look upon, especially for a rat. Emmer calls out what else he sees. Logically, that'd be several more weak acolytes, and probably 1 more sorcerer. It's a substantial cult base, but the cult already took out the satellite base and captured 3 foragers outside. Alright then, do the cultists think to threaten the attackers by using the hostage? Even odds say no. They'd be keeping someone here as a threat to the town, but they weren't fully prepared to have these people kick in the door from an unexpected direction. Tactically, the sane thing to do might be to fall back and try to fight in the narrow tunnel they came in by. But the goal of this mission is intel. At this point I stopped tracking the exact stats, because the hero's goal is to run ahead with their boosted speed to learn whatever they can. And their rolls at the exert skill for running are mediocre, so they get only partial information about what's ahead before being killed by several rounds of berserk combat. And no, they do not find the hostage. End of the vision. Len snaps out of her vision, shrieking. Emmer had anticipated that. He clamps a hand over her muzzle and says, "Shh, it's all right. What did you see?" Len takes a moment to calm down, and explains as well as she can. "We need to not bunch up." The party is unnerved to hear there's that much opposition, and they have throwing weapons. So, new plan. The crosswomen will sneak along the hall, being quiet and slow in the dark this time, with Len sneaking behind them just out of grenade range. The 2 men will shoot the guy in the alchemy room, and if that doesn't work, Len can zap him with a bit less subtlety. There are, let's say, 6 acolytes down there, plus 2 sorcerers. Picking off several before being discovered would be great. So, for real this time, the party arrives at the secret entrance. They creep along, finding that this alchemy guy has his own light source and no reason to look into the dark tunnel. It's a dead end as far as he knows. It's probably pretty easy to get in a surprise round, and roll says yes. They snipe, and roll horribly. A bottle shatters, nothing more. Len has to spring into action with a bolt of lightning, and he manages to hit the guy without killing him. Initiative, and the cultist wins. He yells in alarm. Great. He chucks a grenade. The two crossbowmen go down and Len is singed. Emma runs up and chucks a throwing knife, which fails to drop the man also, and Len shoots again to no effect. This is already going poorly. At least the rest of the party wasn't close enough to be hit by the grenade. The cultist runs for help, shouting. Next round, Emma throws another knife and the cultist collapses face first in the tunnel. Len is busy with first aid, managing to stabilize one man. One of the other humans rushes up to loot the alchemy lab. The cultist needs several turns to assemble. Len stabilizes the other crossbowmen, so they'll live, but they're both out of combat for 10 minutes. Everybody retreats. So, did the alchemy looter get anything good? Yes, looks like he got another grenade potion, and he made sure there were no others lying around to show at the party. So then, how did the cultists react to this? From their perspective, they heard a shout and found one of their own lying on the floor with 2 knives and some electrical burns on him. Presumably they find the hidden entryway now. Yeah, so their attitude is defensive. They hole up and do something necromantic in desperation. They summon a wight, W-I-G-H-T, a ghost immune to ordinary weapons and with an aura of fear. I'm treating this as a Worlds Without Number ravenous husk, commanded by magic to kill the intruders. As written, it can pass through solid objects, but only in the dark. So it exits through the hidden tunnel. The good news is that I think enough time passes due to the confusion that Len's magic effort recharges. This ghost comes moaning up out of the depths, and the party is hiding in the barn again. They hear it coming and shudder in fright. It creates commotion in town as it floats around in broad daylight. The party opens the door to see this awful thing, ready to slam it again. Len must make a mental save, which she barely passes, due to being an experienced adventurer. She blasts it with fire for minimum damage, and Emma throws a knife, only to see it pass right through. So does a crossbow bolt. They slam the door shut, but can the ghost rush in quickly enough? Yes, unfortunately. Its unholy touch ignores Emma's defenses and slashes across Len. She counters with fire that burns the creature to goo on the ground. As the group recovers from its fright and patches Len up, they quietly rejoice. If a hostile spellcaster uses a spell slot and only manages to do 2 hit points of damage to you, that is good. Now it's time to try again for an assault on the cultists. There are 2 known entrances to the place, one hidden in the basement, where the party came through recently. So the cultists could escape, but they're under siege now, and they've done evil magic in the open, hurting their ability to claim they leave the locals alone. So, Emmer takes advantage of the situation not with a sword, but with his words. He gives a speech to the townsfolk, saying, "It's time to throw these villains out. They're scared and cornered. We have the power to do it, with your spears at our side." The people were skeptical of Emmer, specifically, but the fact that he's leading a whole squad with humans in it helps bring the people of Birrell around. The people whisper that he seems to know things as though he were a native, which he is. The result is that a couple of the braver souls grab torches and pitchforks, ready to fight, while another group seizes control of the main entrance and blocks it up with heavy things. The next move, then, is to try provoking the enemy some more. The party enters the hidden tunnel, the last known entrance, and spreads out. They dump a lot of hay and wood down here and set it on fire, hoping to smoke these guys out. How well does that go? It's not a perfect plan, since there are soon some wisps of smoke visible from natural or artificial cracks in the tunnel network. People then try to plug these. It takes hours before much will happen. How then does the cult react as the smoke thickens? They're getting desperate. They try to force their way out, and that's good. How about their hostage? They probably try to force their way out with a knife to the kidnapped girl's throat. Len is hidden, ready for that. She knows she can hit the hostage takers with a sleep spell. She knows that they know that, and will want to spread out to minimize the threat. So the party's reaction is to look frightened, back off in a wide area, and let more of the enemy try to get out. The enemy cultists kind of all have to leave in a hurry or choke, but they fear getting clustered. What's their approach as they exit? The lead sorcerer has a squad of 4 skeletons with rusty swords, conjured earlier. There are 5 cultists and 2 of their mages. Revealed in daylight, the leader shouts, "Stay back, or you will all suffer a terrible fate." The group is trying to force its way out, and they're threatening to cut people down. But they're outnumbered, and Len targets the caster and anyone around him with a sleep spell. She has a guard under the number for this, hoping to shield her without the 2 of them being targeted together in return. She gets in a surprise round, setting off the spell from cover. The lead caster, and luckily 2 of the goons, immediately fall asleep. Roll for initiative. Tied. Heroes win. Len sees the other spellcaster and targets him with the attack spell, the Coruscating Coffin, a blast of energy. That man howls and convulses with crackling magic energy, and his spellcasting is disrupted for the round. And from here, I think it's over. The cultists have two spellcasters. One of them is asleep, and the other one is neutralized for this round. Emmer charges in with his sword to nail that guy too. And seeing all that, the rest of the party and the rallied townsfolk run in to crush the rest of the resistance. That hostage fell asleep in the process, but there was nobody up to threaten her. Victory. The party managed to get through all that while avoiding a fair fight, which is good tactics. Magic, a speech to get some extra militia, and the support of the Padfoot faction brought enough power to the situation to finish rooting out the Black Rose cult from the home of Len and Emmer. The two of them congratulate the people on taking their town back from these monsters. And then, Emmer explains the whole truth of why he's here. He gives the original names of himself and Len, and talks about how they fled for their lives and joined the rats at Padfoot Alley. He says there's an opportunity there to build a new home, that not everybody actually has to move to the city, and that the transformation comes with real benefits to health and lifespan, even magic in Len's case. Though the people are fearful of the strange magic, he makes a reasonable case, and he rolls well with his diplomatic bonuses. He's able to talk about the shift in attitude in Kettleshare and several recent victories over the cult. Len chips in, "The more of us there are, the safer we'll be. How about meeting up with more of us and hearing about what we can do for you? After I rest, I'll be happy to cast a few spells for you too, if you allow it." That's the end of that quest. They effectively got no treasure out of this. They more or less gave away whatever they got from the cult. They did get some renown, though. Ember and Len lead their group back to Taldurius a few days later. It's the end of the mission they've been on for some time, trying to liberate their hometown. Their self-chosen mission to recruit more people to join their species is a major change in the situation, made easier by their adventuring. They had planned to spend their renown points bringing about change by talking more people into joining, and concluded that they should get more directly involved in that. Their actions have cut the project's cost in half by removing some of the resistance, from 16 points to 8. Because they gained 2 points in the last adventure each, they had 12 to spend each, and so they spend some of that, and get the project done. They are using the renown system to make a permanent change in the setting, changing the Padfoot Alley faction, so that their critical population shortage becomes less of a problem. And now there's a new problem that springs up in response. Tension between the original flavor and newcomer rats. Guard Captain Marius Thornroot becomes a more prominent figure in the alley, because there's increased need for policing to maintain and rebuild trust among this changing population. Surely that won't come back to bite anyone. Also, this large population influx is happening in large part due to Emmer, who works under Marius. The guard captain is still not very happy about having so many newcomers, but he's accepted the necessity by now. He has worked with Emmer and Len to vet the new people and select ones who can get along and contribute. As a side effect of all this change, the idea of the ratfolk actively changing people becomes more public knowledge. The culture around here fears magic, so there are rumors of forced change. Part of what Emmer and Len have to do now is go around reassuring people with words and free magic demonstrations. But these changes happen off stage. The two of them have earned a break. Time passes. It's a month or so later when Marius summons Len and Emmer for a meeting. He says, "Our people need an escape plan if need be." Emmer is skeptical, saying, "We have the city, sir, and several exits from the alley." Marius says, "Even so, there's enough trouble on the surface that I'd like Len to help with a tunnel digging project. With a single spell, you can carve out 80 feet in a day, right?" Len says, "Yes, but that's half my spell work for the day. Lately I've been doing stone shaping for customers. The city has lots of surplus housing above ground, but it's deteriorating. Len has been making money as a spellcaster by fixing stonework, maintaining the city's stone houses and walls, and expanding the underground district." Marius agrees that Len can make major progress with just one spell a day, increasing the security of the ratfolk. In the process, she can make the place a mine, a storehouse, a tourist attraction. She's skeptical about all that, but gets talked into it after being told that she won't be the only person digging and mining. Whatever this is about seems important to the leadership. At this point, Len is patriotic in the sense of being loyal to Padfoot Alley, and she's willing to contribute some of her spells per day to work on this project, whatever it is. Len has time to study these days. She learns to read better and gets more involved in education and administration for the ratfolk. That means getting a chance to spend her skill points on the know and administer skills. She also studies more magic and learns a spell called Flame Without End, letting her create permanent fire, including a flaming sword for Emmer. Her role in the recruitment program makes her a key figure in the Padfoot ruling council. Emmer continues to be the more social one. He travels between Taldorius, its underworks, and Bureau Crossing. It turns out that some of the people being recruited for the rat program don't want to leave their towns. That's understandable, and probably a good cultural thing for everybody. He encourages frequent visits between the city and the town, though. The heroes are increasingly important and wealthy, but their story isn't over. One day, Len's tunnel digging runs into something strange. Here, I want something to happen that isn't another run-in with the cult. One day, Len is making the increasingly long commute from her temporary shared apartment, a mile beyond Padfoot, deep in the tunnel that she's carved beyond the underground alley. She has been doing 1 or 2 spells a day to extend it, occasionally creating a side room. These are expected to become storage, housing, or shops of some kind. So far, nobody has much reason to be here, though. It's eerie down here, she says, even with others coming by to drill ventilation shafts. Emmer notes, too empty and featureless and dark, and there's just not much here yet. The ratfolk in general are very concerned with light due to their tunnel living. Len is one of the people creating permanent magic lanterns now, but those cost money. Besides those, there are spells, candles, and lamps. I'm bringing out a mini-adventure that I got from a creator called Roving Band of Misfits. I will provide a link to that in the description. The digging crew runs into something odd. There's an old wooden door here along the fresh tunnel, and signs that there's been a cave-in long ago. The crew hacks and pulls to get the door open, revealing a room with a large marble basin. There's a pile of wood and plants dried up in one corner, and a crate of empty vials. Emmer says, "This looks like part of an alchemy workshop we've accidentally stumbled across." Next to that is a sword lying on the floor, with a patch of mushrooms and a giant web. A curtain on the west wall blows, suggesting wind behind it. The party looks around and finds no giant spiders, yet. Suspicious, they try the other doorway. This has stairs leading to a weird dead end. In this place they find the spider. It's a large solitary predator, and it's hungry. The heroes win initiative. Emmer as usual shields then, while slashing at the beast, now using a flaming sword powered by her magic. He hits and burns spider flesh. Len adds more fire by her own magic. It lunges toward the softest target, but its mandibles only clatter off Emmer's shield. He runs it through. Emmer and Len are convinced this isn't a complete workshop by itself, so they search and quickly find not 1 but 2 hidden doors in odd nooks. In one room they find more of the missing alchemist's stuff. There's a collection of potions and flasks, ingredients from war, and some books. Len tries to make sense of these and confers with Emmer. They see that this stuff involves a study of plants and fungi and necromancy. It'll take time to identify all this. There's also a gem-encrusted golden key. They poke it suspiciously and nothing happens, so they take it. The other hidden door leads to a room with a curtained north wall, on which is a carved face. A runic circle marks the floor. Emmer notes, the north wall has some exposed bricks not matching the natural stone here. Len examines the runes but doesn't understand them well. We'll have someone else look later. They walk out of the place and talk with the miners who were standing by. Emmer says, "Send word of what we found. I want a volunteer or 2 to back us up in case of trouble." Since Emmer is a guard invoking his status and leadership, he is able to get a pair of ordinary guards as support for this. They show up and salute him. It's a good feeling. The party returns to the room with the sword and the mushrooms, poking vigorously around with halberds. They pull aside the curtain to reveal a cave. It's full of mushrooms of every kind, an unnatural array and density of them, really. With his flaming sword, Emmer whispers, "I think I see something moving in there." Len calls out, "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer. The party decides to react to this spooky cave by gathering up the wood from the first room, chucking it into the cave, and setting the entire area on fire. "Nope, nope," say the guards, not wanting to go in there. Good idea. Unfortunately, a nasty fungus monster emerges, driven to desperate combat by the flames. This is an ash crawler, a hideous 10-foot-long centipede thing. The heroes win initiative. Emmer, flanked by the guards, skewers the beast with a flaming sword and 2 halberds. Len's fire blast misfires due to the flame she's already set, and she trips over her own tail. The beast tries to pounce her. Its first move misses, but then it sinks its fangs into Emmer's side. A minor bite. He fends off infection. He and the guards are rattled enough to only graze the monster, and Len misses again with her magic attack. The monster tries this time to kill the guards, biting at each one. Both of them take hits, and one goes down. Trying to kill this monster quickly, Emmer attacks, and has the other guards strike separately. He hacks several of its legs off with his flame blade, and the guard stabs his halberd through its eye. Hissing, the monster twitches and dies. Len hurries to tend to the most wounded guard. She manages to stabilize him, but says, "You all need to get your wounds checked when we get back." The party makes sure that the cave area is thoroughly cleansed with fire. Sensibly, they retreat for now to get some rest and give a full report. The next day, they come back to investigate the brick wall. Tearing it open by mundane picks and shovels, they reveal a dark shrine to the reptilian Vulgrax. These powerful overlords once ruled much of the world. In this shrine there are braziers made of humanoid bones, and an obsidian altar with old red-brown stains. Runes mar the surface, and there's a statuette of a monster. Len seems fascinated by it. She starts walking toward the altar. Emmer, ever sensible, yanks her back, saying, "What are you doing?" "Going to take the idol," she says, sounding dazed. Len has to be dragged out of the room and shaken a bit before she recovers her wits. She shivers and hugs Emmer, saying, "More of that evil influence is all over Aeres." Emmer says, "We'll purge it however we can." The outcome of this little trip was the recovery of some potions and alchemy equipment, with notes on a mad alchemist who was executed by the old king, maybe deservingly. After burning everything dangerous out of here, the laboratory becomes part of the ratfolk's underground domain. They decide to take a break from active adventuring for a while. They train others, they help recruit more people to the Padfoot faction, and they start raising a family. +1 renown to each of them, by the way, bringing them up to 9 each. At this point, I'm going to let these two heroes be happy and safe for a while. They are level 4 adventurers, prosperous and respected. They've made a substantial change to the setting by removing the most serious problem of their adopted people, and by retaking their hometown from the cult. What's next for them in terms of goals? Besides family, they would like to bring the town of Ch.3 more within their people's orbit, crippling the nation of Irulan. One way they can do that is to offer more magical aid now that Ch.3 is more tolerant of magic again. Besides that, they would like to sponsor improved farming to start pushing back the land's magical wasteland zones. But some of that is an adventure for another day, and maybe for other characters. And so, at least for now, I bring this campaign to a close. That's the end of a story set in the Chronicles of Aeres setting by Dueling Dragon Games. What do I make of this campaign? I didn't use the default rule system of D&D, so I had to adapt stat blocks and other details like potions. There was also a mismatch in assumptions, because as written, Aeres has a lot of potions available, but magic in general is rare and feared. I was playing a magic-focused character, as I usually prefer, and the rule system downplays potions and other magic items by making them relatively expensive. One thing I've talked about a bit with the setting's author is the ratfolk and other odd races are meant to be rare and special in the setting, and they can't easily go everywhere they want. If you read the canon material about Irulan, for instance, my characters would get killed going there at all, except maybe as part of a human-focused party. So I am bending the setting somewhat by letting this two-rodent party do even as much as it does. The canon is fine, unless you specifically get a bunch of players who all want to be weird races. For this game, I use the system's standard powered level, not some extra heroic mode as I've done in other campaigns. That's partly because I'm using 2 characters at once in this one. That turned out alright. I was afraid of the Inquisitors and of big fights, and wasn't able to kill my way through all opposition easily. I would have liked to do more with the renown and faction system than just the one project. A longer campaign would have done more with Irulan or branched out into other territories. As for having 2 characters at once, I thought that was fun. I'm no voice actor, so my token attempts to do voice effects for the different characters is obviously pretty awkward. And it's a little strange to play 2 characters at once when they have this relationship, but as a writer, I like the idea that I've got 2 characters who are interacting like that and have different personalities. I'd like to do more of that. Emmer, I am jealous of you. But anyway, the storyline was fun for me and had a reasonable difficulty level. Also, the rules complexity was manageable. A new edition of the Chronicles of Aeres setting is coming soon, and it's going to be a little bit different and exciting because it's going to be written specifically for old-school AD&D 2nd edition. I lobbied a bit to use Worlds Without Number compatibility, but as I've shown, you can adapt one thing to another, and Worlds Without Number is, by the way, designed to work with old-school material such as AD&D, so you'll probably be able to pull out the material from the new edition of Aeres and use it pretty much verbatim, either in this rule system or in any of the other OSR-style role-playing games. I'm told the setting is going to be substantially different as well. It's placed a little farther into the future by several decades, and it's going to have a somewhat different map and setting assumptions, so it's not quite logically continuous with it, if I understand right. It's going to be human-focused, as usual, I focused on the ratfolk characters here because they are the author's favorites and I happen to like them myself. But don't get the wrong idea, this is made mainly for human-type characters. And maybe to get Rodentia out of a system, the author is also doing a ratfolk-centric adventure as a side or companion book to the main 2nd edition Chronicles of Aeres. And that side book will be called Nightfall at Thorn Hollow. I'm told it's going to have some faction-based gameplay and more of an open-world feel, and that's something I'm looking forward to. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the adventures of Emmer and Len. I tell a lot of other stories in book form, and you can find a lot of them on Amazon. I have a couple of story projects that I'm currently kind of stalled on, and I might do 1 or 2 more of these RPG playthroughs sometime soon, depending on the reception. In particular, I'm thinking about doing another session of that Wolves of God story, and another one in Ashes Without Number, which has been updated recently to have more information about its default setting. It's still not officially out yet, but I like what I'm reading so far. I'm Ch.3. Thanks for listening. See you next time.